ask everybody to open your Bibles to Proverbs chapter 6. Mr. and Mrs. Gregory and Valerie Simpson, it's great to see you today. Proverbs chapter 6. We give honor to the Spirit of God that is in this place. Without His Spirit, where in the world would we be? If it had not been for the Lord who was on our side, we realize that we would not be standing where we're standing. We thank God for the presence of our honored and esteemed pastor and First Lady Emeritus. Thank God for the presence of our First Lady, my wife, and my beautiful children. And to all of New Rising Star, we bless God for you. Proverbs chapter number 6, starting with verse number 6. When you have it, say, I have it. If you don't have it, say, wait a minute. Take it that everybody has it. Proverbs chapter 6, starting at verse 6. Go to the ant, thou sluggard, consider her ways and be wise, which having no guide, overseer, or ruler, provideth her meat in the summer, and gathereth her food in the harvest. How long wilt thou sleep, O sluggard? When wilt thou arise out of thy sleep? Yet a little sleep, a little slumber, a little folding of the hands to sleep. So shall thy poverty come as one that travaileth, and thy want as an armed man. You may be seated in the presence of the Lord. Let the church say amen. We have been in a series on money management under the conviction that oftentimes we mess up in church. Because as pastors, we tell people what to do with the 90% or what to do with the 10% of their money. Everybody knows that we are supposed to tithe 10% into the storehouse. The storehouse is the old-time equivalent to the modern-day church. 10% of all of our increase is to go to God. But we failed miserably at telling people how to handle correctly the 90% of the rest of their income. It is possible to be a tither and still be behind financially. Because anytime you tithe, but you do not handle the 90% correctly, amen, you can still be behind financially. And so today is part 2 of the series. Today I want to talk about the 90% part 2, getting and governing wealth. Getting and governing wealth. Last week we talked about getting wealth. Today I want to talk about getting and governing wealth. Let the church say amen. Amen. Ladies and gentlemen, allow me to begin this message by simply stating that most of the women under the sound of my voice who happen to not be married at this particular moment in time, perhaps you are looking for a good man. It is quite interesting to note that many of us define a good man according to the world's standards instead of us defining a good man according to the standards of the word. Whether you know it or not, I've come to the understanding that the world teaches us that a good man is somebody with male genitalia that drives a nice car. The world teaches us that a good man is somebody with male genitalia that lives inside of a nice house. The world teaches us that a good man is somebody with male genitalia that has a wad of cash inside of their bank account. But ladies and gentlemen, if in fact you are going to find truly what a good man is, not according to the standards of the world, you have to start with the standard of the Word of God. Ladies and gentlemen, the Bible declares in Proverbs chapter number 13, verse number 22, that a good man leaves an inheritance to his children's children. I'm going to say that again. A good man is not a man that has a nice car. He has more than a nice car. A good man is not just a man who lives in a nice house. He has more than a nice house. A good man is not just a wealthy man, but a good man knows how to handle his wealth, so much to the point that his wealth is not just for him. But the Bible declares in Proverbs chapter number 13, verse number 22, that a good man leaves an inheritance to his children's children. Ladies and gentlemen, as this pertains to wealth, that says to all of us that whenever you obtain wealth on earth, it is not just for you. But whenever you obtain wealth on earth, God blesses us in order to be a blessing to somebody else. Many of us want wealth, which is the right thing, but many of us have impure motives. Many of us want wealth not to be a blessing to somebody else, but many of us want to be wealthy for our own personal gain and our own personal benefit. Nobody wants to be wealthy in order to be a blessing to somebody else. But the Bible teaches us, according to Proverbs chapter number 13, starting with verse 22, that a good man leaves an inheritance to his children's children. That says that the wealth that we obtain on earth is not just for us, but it ought to have an impact so much to the point that it affects, watch this, 2 generations down the line. In other words, God wants us to be wealthy for our children and for our grandchildren. Why does he want us to be wealthy for our children and our grandchildren? Because anytime you are not able to pass down generational wealth, when our children become of age, they already start out behind financially, so much to the point that they have to climb high just to get to the bottom. I'm going to say that again. Whenever you fail to pass down wealth, our children start out financially behind, so much to the point that they have to climb high just to get to the bottom. And so watch this. God wants us to be wealthy for other people, but I've come to the understanding it is impossible to leave an inheritance when we are poor stewards of the money that God gives us. I'm going to say that again. It is impossible to leave an inheritance when we are poor stewards of the money that God gives us. And so the first thing this verse teaches us is that the wealth we receive on earth should be sufficient to impact the next 2 generations of our family, which includes our children and our grandchildren. But ladies and gentlemen, in the B part of Proverbs chapter 13, verse number 22, it also teaches us, hear this clearly, that the wealth of the wicked is laid up for the just. I'm going to say that again. The wealth of the wicked is laid up for the just. In other words, we learned last week that we get wealth primarily through working. But allow me to pause to tell somebody that every now and again, God has a way of allowing you to have some wealth that you didn't even work for. In other words, he says in this particular verse that a good man leaves an inheritance to his children's children, but he also says in the B part that the wealth of the wicked is laid up for the just. The just are the righteous. The righteous are those that have a relationship with Jesus the Christ. Ladies and gentlemen, the next thing this verse teaches us is that we don't have any reason to be jealous of evil people who seem like they are getting ahead in life. I guess I'm the only one who's ever been there inside of my life. Anybody ever had an experience that somebody you know they are not saved, somebody you know they don't even go to church, somebody you know they ain't even trying to live right, but every time you talk to them it seems like they are always doing good. It seems like they've crossed every T, like they've dotted every I, like they don't ever run into any financial problems. But God says when you find somebody like that, he says please do not be jealous and please do not be envious. Y'all don't believe me? The Bible declares in Psalms number 37 verses 1 through 2, he says, fret not yourselves because of evildoers, neither be thou envious against the workers of iniquity. Why should I not fret because of evildoers? Why should I not be envious against the workers of iniquity? I'm in verse number 2, Psalms 37. He says, for they shall soon be cut down like the grass and wither as the green herb. And so, ladies and gentlemen, according to Psalms 37 verses 1 through 2 and Proverbs chapter number 13 verse 22, it tells us why you don't have to be jealous of wicked people who seem like they are getting ahead. Because number one, he says in Psalms 37 verses 1 through 2 that the wicked who seem like they're getting ahead will soon be cut off and wither away. And after they are cut off and they wither away, God tells us in Proverbs chapter number 13, there's gonna be a wealth transfer, and the wealth of the wicked is laid up for the righteous. Look at the person beside you and say, he talking about you. God Almighty, you act like you don't know when to get excited. If you got a relationship with Jesus the Christ, God says you don't have to be jealous about anybody. But he says, watch this, they work for it, but they didn't even know that they were working for it and wouldn't be able to enjoy it because they worked for it, but God cut them off and cut them down and passed it down to you. Can I pause to tell somebody that God has a way of giving you houses you didn't build. God has a way of giving you wells that you didn't dig. God has a way of giving you vineyards that you didn't plant. And so primarily, watch this, number one, we get wealth through working, but number two, you can also obtain wealth if you learn how to wait and be patient. I wish somebody could hear what I'm saying this morning. Does everybody understand what I'm saying? And so watch this, not only this, but when it comes to wealth, I told you this last week, I want to be a little bit redundant because I want you to get this down in your spirit. There are 4 specific principles that all of us need to know about wealth. Number one, we need to know how to get wealth. Everybody shout, get wealth. After you get wealth, we need to know how to govern wealth. Everybody say govern wealth. After we govern wealth, we need to know how to grow wealth. Everybody say grow wealth. After we grow wealth, we need to know how to give wealth. Everybody say give wealth. Ladies and gentlemen, this particular series focuses on the first 3. It focuses on getting wealth, governing wealth, and growing wealth. Why am I not talking about giving wealth? Because everybody knows that come time November, that's all we're going to be talking about is giving. But lest you accuse me that that's all I talk about is giving, I want to use this series to tell everybody what it is that God expects for us to do with the other 90% of our income. Everybody ready? Say ready. Number one, principles for getting wealth. Principles for getting wealth. A lesson from the ant. How many of you really believe that you can learn something from absolutely anybody? The reason I ask that question because many of us feel as if we cannot learn from anybody that does not have more degrees than we have. A lot of times we judge people and we size people up and we deem people to be small because they didn't grow up the way that we grew up. They didn't go to the schools that we went to. But I don't care how small you think that somebody is, we can learn something from anybody. Here it is. God says if you want to learn how to get wealth and if you want to learn how to govern wealth, I'm in Proverbs chapter number 6, starting with verse number 6. He says, go to the ant, you sluggard. Ladies and gentlemen, the ant is smaller than all of us. But just because he's smaller than us doesn't mean that we cannot learn from the ant. That went over somebody's head right there. See, you think you can't learn from Pastor Beavers because he ain't nothing but 30 years old and he ain't been through what I've been through. But guess what? If God can speak to us through an ant, then God can speak to you through Pastor Beavers. Watch this. The first thing we learn about the ant in Proverbs chapter number 6, the ant works without a guide, without an overseer, and without a ruler. Proverbs chapter number 6, verse 6. Every day the ant has such a mind to get up and go to work in the morning that, watch this, he works without human supervision. Nobody has to stand over the ant and make sure that the ant is doing its job. But it's so motivated that even in the absence of human supervision, I'm still giving my job 110%. Ladies and gentlemen, I told you last week that if in fact we are going to obtain wealth, we obtain wealth through working. But when it is that you work, you got to have a certain mindset, because everybody can't last on a job. We skip from job to job to job. We don't really see longevity anymore. But if in fact there is going to be longevity on the job, you got to have a certain mindset. What mindset do I need to have? I need to have the mindset of the ant. Watch this. The ant works without a guide, without an overseer, and without a ruler. That is Proverbs chapter number 6, verse 6. That says to all of us, watch this, I got to have the mind to work hard even in the absence of supervision. Many of us don't know what that is, because many of us, out of an 8-hour workday, spend 6 hours checking emails. Somebody guilty in here. I feel it. Feel it in the spirit. 6 hours checking emails, and we don't do anything until the boss peeks his head around the corner. Then you got the nerve to try to act like you busy. God says you can never expect to get ahead like that. But he says you got to have a mindset that even when you go to work, I'm giving 110 whether or not my supervisor is here or whether or not the supervisor is not here. I'm still going to give it my all. Now watch this. That's what we are supposed to do. But how do we do it? Because the church is guilty of telling people what to do, but we don't really tell people how they are supposed to do it. You do it because, watch this, you realize that your real boss is not your human supervisor. It is God. The Bible teaches us in Ephesians chapter number 6, verse number 7, and watch this. It says, whenever you work, whenever you give your service, whenever you go to work, it says we ought to work heartily as unto the Lord and not unto man. And when it is that you have the mindset that I'm working for God and not for man, it doesn't matter if the boss is at the job. It doesn't matter if the boss is away from the job, because I'm working for God and God is always watching. I'm going to always do a good job. Does everybody hear what I'm saying? So watch this. I got to have the mindset to work hard even in the absence of human supervision. I do this by working unto the Lord and not for man. Matter of fact, can I tell somebody that our boss or our supervisor ought to be a beneficiary of our relationship with God? In other words, I'm good to my boss, not necessarily because I like my boss. I just love God and I don't want to disappoint him. See, he thinks that I'm doing such a wonderful job because I agree with everything that he's telling me to do. It's not that I agree with everything that he's telling me to do, because truth be told, sometimes I want to cuss him out. Sometimes I just want to tell him to go somewhere. Sometimes I want to tell him to get on somewhere. But I keep working, watch this, and giving it my all, not because I love my boss, but I love God and I don't want to disappoint him. That's what the Bible means in Ephesians chapter number 6, verse 7, when it says work heartily as unto God and not unto man. That's principle number 1. Principle number 2 for getting wealth. Watch this, a lesson from the ant. The ant has a mindset to work because it lives in a colony. I've never seen an ant that lives by itself. They live in a colony. God Almighty. And the colony is so unified that if you step your foot in the colony, you mess with one ant, the whole colony gonna jump on you at the same time. Can you imagine if the church had an ant mentality? God Almighty, that we weren't stabbing each other in the back and smiling in each other's face and backbiting it and getting on each other's nerves. But can you imagine that if the church was so unified that somebody stood up and said that in order to get to my neighbor, you first got to go through me? Can you imagine, watch this, that if somebody from the outside says something about your brother, your sister in Christ, that if somebody from the outside says something about your pastor, to speak about my pastor and to speak about my brother or my sister in Christ is to talk about me. And you ain't gonna talk about them and talk about me in my presence. If one person got an issue, we all got an issue. Does anybody hear what I'm saying? We gotta have an ant mentality, so much to the point, I think I told the 8 o'clock crowd this morning, half of the fights I got into when I was growing up as a young child, they really wasn't my fights. Yeah, I ain't never been in a fight. Okay. Uh, they really were my fights. But because of who I was associated with, we had this rule that if one person fought, then everybody got a fight. God Almighty. And so watch this. Sometimes I would be out and I wouldn't even be beefing with the people. I wouldn't have no problem. Well, like, why y'all want to start up the day? Every time we go somewhere, y'all never want to act right. You always want to fight somebody. And watch this. I couldn't help it because sometimes when I got into a fight, it really wasn't my fight, but because they had a problem with my friends, they had a problem with me. Can you imagine if the church had the same mentality? And so watch this. The ant has a mindset to work because it lives in a colony. The survival of the ant colony depends on the ant working. Ladies and gentlemen, you live in a colony. Number one, your first colony is your family, your immediate household. Number two, your second colony is the church family. We are family at New Rising Star. And the survival of your blood family and the survival of the church family, watch this, depends upon us going to work every single day. Isn't it amazing that we sit inside of the church and it never crosses our mind how the light's gonna come on? It doesn't cross your mind until you walk in here and Alabama Power then cut the lights off. It never crosses our mind, it's getting ready to get cold, how the gas is gonna stay on. God Almighty. But ladies and gentlemen, the survival of our families, both blood and church family, depends upon us working. Can I pause to tell somebody that's the reason we put up with things on our jobs that we really don't want to put up with? Yeah, I'm taking stuff not because of me, but the survival of my family depends upon what it is that I do at work. You keep listening to folk talking about I wouldn't put up with that if I were you. Guess what? You ain't me. If you had the mouths to feed that I have to feed, you wouldn't say what you wouldn't put up with. The survival of our families is dependent upon us working. Ladies and gentlemen, principle number 3, poverty is a consequence of laziness. Do you hear what I'm saying? Poverty is a consequence of laziness. That's Proverbs chapter 6 verses 9 through 11. Poverty is a consequence of laziness. It says a little sleep, a little slumber, a little folding of the hands, and your poverty shall soon come upon you. It shall soon come upon you, watch this, and your want as an armed man. Poverty is the consequence of laziness. That says to all of us, it is impossible to be wealthy and lazy at the same time. You keep looking at people you see on TV as if they don't do anything to get to where they are. You don't know how hard they work. You don't see them getting up at 4 o'clock in the morning. They get up earlier than everybody else and they go to bed later than everybody else. But we want to be where they are, but we don't want to work the way they work. Poverty is a consequence of laziness. And can I take it a little bit further? Crime is a consequence of poverty. Do you hear what I'm saying? Poverty is a consequence of laziness. Crime is a consequence of poverty. I Googled some statistics on yesterday and I found that the crime index in the United States of America is the highest in poor communities. Why is that? Because when you don't have, you take by any means necessary. And so watch this. If you want to address crime, you first have to address poverty. Do you hear what I'm saying? The Bible teaches us 2 Thessalonians chapter number 3 verse number 10 that a man who does not work does not eat. Do y'all understand what I'm saying? Poverty is a consequence of laziness. I cannot be wealthy and lazy at the same time. If I don't work, I don't eat. Everybody got it? Say I got it. Now let's talk about principles for governing wealth. I pray that this is blessing somebody. We normally shout in church, but we did that about 2 Sundays ago, and you'll have to come back on next Sunday. We're going to shout next Sunday, provided that the Spirit allows us. Principles for governing wealth. Everybody say governing wealth. A lesson from the ant. Watch this. This is crazy. There's one main principle for governing wealth, no matter how much money you have. I wish I could tell you something real deep, but it's not that deep. Okay? Watch this. Proverbs chapter 6, verse number 7. The ant works hard in the summer, gathering food for the winter. That says that the food the ant gathers in the summer has to last 2 seasons. In order for the food the ant gathers in the summer to last 2 seasons, the ant has to live beneath its means. Somebody just missed that. We don't govern our wealth correctly because we are always living above our means. Why do we live above our means? For so many reasons, but the primary reason we live above our means, we want to look better than what we really are. We don't want to do well, we just want to look like we doing well. Why? Watch this. We want to keep up with the Joneses. And because they got a nice truck, I want to get me a Cadillac truck sitting on 24s as well because they got it. And so watch this. We look good, but we really don't have any money inside of the bank. Why don't we have any money inside of the bank? Because we live above our means. And so here's the principle for governing wealth. No matter how much you make, no matter how little you make, don't spend more than what you take in. I wish somebody could hear what I'm saying. I wish I had something that was deep, but it ain't that deep. Do not spend more. It's not about how much you make, it's how you handle what you make. Y'all don't believe me? Athletes are declaring and filing for bankruptcy every single day. Every day. Antoine Walker used to play for the Boston Celtics. How in the world you make $85 million over your career, and when you walk away from the game, you don't have anything to show for it? Vince Young just got cut from the Buffalo Bills, making all of that money, just declared bankruptcy. It is not about how much you make. It is about how you handle what you make. And if in fact we are going to handle what we make in the correct manner, you cannot live above your means. And so even though my money looks like it says, watch this, I can drive a Maybach, I might want to get some just beneath a Maybach. Saying I ain't heard of that one before. Google it. All right, and so watch this. We cannot be wealthy by spending more than what we take in. We have to live beneath our means. I want to give you 5 wealth killers. The Lord spoke to me as I was putting this message together, and the Lord said to me, Thomas, anything that causes you to live above your means is a wealth killer. Do y'all hear what I'm saying? All right. Number 1, lack of discipline in several areas. Lack of discipline. Wealth killer number 1, fast food and entertainment. You ever got paid on Friday? You got 2 weeks till you get paid. You broke on Monday. Where in the world did my money go? McDonald's, Wendy's. Every day you eating out. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm married. I got a wife. I have 6 children. That means there's 8 people in our house. And sometimes I have to make a decision. I promise you, I got to make a decision whether or not to feed 8 people with $40 one time at McDonald's, or feed 8 people with $40 5 times from the grocery store. I'm teaching this because I done messed up in every one of these areas. Fast food will kill you. Another thing that'll kill you, entertainment. We got to have some fun now. Got to go to the concert. Got to go see Tasia. I'm not saying these things are the devil, but if you do it at the expense of your child's education, you done been to every concert 1077 didn't advertise. And it's the middle of the school year and your child still doesn't have school supplies. Something wrong with that. You done been to every movie, and it's the middle of the school year, and a child's shirt ain't been white since the first day of school. Sometimes we have to sacrifice what we want to do what we need. All right? Wealth killer number 2, credit cards. Anytime you spend money on a credit card, you're spending money that you don't have. Instead of using a credit card, why not use a debit card sometimes? That way, when you spend it, it's already spent. It is out of your bank account. Practical. Credit cards. And can I pause to tell somebody, never buy anything on credit that loses all of its value by the time you finish paying for it. Tell you another mistake I made. I will never buy furniture on credit again. Because they set you up with this nice payment plan and it looks so good on paper. And they got 4 years to pay it off. But by the time 4 years is over and you paid it off, the furniture is not worth anything because the children didn't peed on it. And so guess what? You want to shop at Ashley Furniture. But in order to get it up front outright, you might have to go to Sticks and Stuff. Big Lots. Do y'all hear what I'm saying? Wealth killer number 3, lack of bookkeeping. Lack of bookkeeping. We spend money and we do not have a clue of how much is in our bank account. We just spend it. Charge. You walk through the store like you Michael Jackson. I want one of these. I want one of these. I want one of these. And before you know it, by the time you look at your bank account, it's in the negative. Because we don't keep up with how much money is in our bank account. Number 4, lack of budgeting. To do a budget, in simplest terms, is to be the boss of your own money and tell your money where to go. That's what a budget is. Instead of us spending on impulse, we have to tell our money where to go before you get paid. If you wait until you get paid, it's too late then. Your money full grown. Now it got a mind of its own. Do y'all hear what I'm saying? We have to tell it where to go before we get paid. And if we tell it where to go, even if the dress on sale, if it ain't in the budget, I gotta say no. But it's on sale. 50% off. Was $50, now it's $25. But if you got $4 in the bank, you still can't buy it. Care how much on sale it is. You don't have it, you don't have it. Wealth killer number 5, lack of insurance. Oh, Lord. And before I cover this one, let me say this. None of us have any business not having anything. Even if you don't make what you want to make, you get a refund check. All right, y'all looking at me crazy. You get all that money at one time and 1 month later you ain't got nothing. Bad money management. I've been there before. You get $5,000 in your hand at one time, 6, sometimes $10,000 at one time. And 1 month later, we don't have, something is wrong. Even if you work a minimum wage job, every year you ought to be getting ahead with a refund check. Wealth killer number 5, lack of insurance. One calamity can break your whole bank. All right, let's talk about life insurance. We really need this in our community because what happens is we don't have life insurance, So when Uncle Bubba died, we got to beg the whole family and church family for money to bury Uncle Bubba. And this is what I don't understand. We don't have life insurance, a $25 life insurance policy, but you got an $80 cell phone bill you pay every month. $80. T-Mobile, Verizon, Boost, Sprint. Every month, and won't pay $25 for a life insurance policy. Something is wrong. Home insurance, car insurance, health insurance. If you don't pay nothing else, you need to do everything that you can to pay your insurance premiums. Because one calamity can break your whole bank. Now watch this. I know what it is to live without health insurance. I've been there. When I first started working, I didn't have health insurance because I could not afford to buy it. But here's where you have to have discipline. Because I always said, when I get the money, I'm going to buy me some health insurance. That's the first thing I'm going to do is buy me some health insurance. I got the money, and guess what? It took me about a month to get my health insurance. Because I was so used to pocketing that money in my own pocket that now that I had the money to buy health insurance, I said, well, I've been living without it this long. I might as well just keep on. Do y'all hear what I'm saying? Make sure you pay your health insurance premiums. Last but not least, principles for governing wealth. This is most of us right here. What do I do if I'm already above my means? That's most of us in here right now. I know you told me what to do, how to govern it, but that category doesn't fit me because I'm already living above my wings. What do I wish I had some deep. I'm talking about deep. I ain't got nothing deep. If you are already above your means, I can gain financial victory by making necessary cuts. Does everybody hear what I'm saying? How do you know this? Gideon was a soldier, a mighty warrior in the Old Testament. Judges chapter number 7. And the children of Israel were getting ready to fight the Midianite army. The Midianites had about 200,000 soldiers. Gideon and the children of Israel only had 32,000 soldiers. 32,000 on this side, 200,000 on the other side. And so Gideon and the children of Israel are already at a disadvantage. God goes to Gideon and says, if you want to win the fight, you got to cut some people. Now, God, that don't make sense. That don't make sense because I got 32,000. They have 200,000. And you telling me that if in fact I am going to win, I got to make some cuts, God. I really don't understand. That doesn't make sense. But his ways are not our ways. They're above our ways. His thoughts are not our thoughts. They are above our thoughts. Watch this. Gideon cut 31,700 people. Ended up with 300 soldiers. Versus 200,000 soldiers, and they won the fight because God fought it for them. But God says, I'm not going to fight on your behalf until you make some cuts. Financially, we want God to do all the fighting, but we don't want to make no cuts. Bless me with a high-paying job, but we have not made any cuts to what we already make. Bless me with more money, but we have not done anything on our part to better ourselves and better our situations. And so watch this. If Gideon can gain the physical and the natural victory by making cuts, God is speaking to all of us. We can gain victory in our finances if we make necessary cuts. What do we need to cut this morning? Who do you need to cut off? What habit do you need to cut off? Because we'll pay for a habit. Is it cigarettes? Is it strip clubs? What vice is it? Is it suits? Is it clothes? Do I shop too much? Is it drinking? Is it smoking? We hurting ourselves and wonder why we never have anything to show for how hard we work. And then you say tithing don't work. No, you just mismanaged the 90%. Stand to your feet.